India's top court has heard a plea on whether to continue to press on with the enforcement of measures to address toxic smog currently blanketing New Delhi. The capital waking up to the season's worst smog yet, with air pollution in some parts of the city reaching the hazardous category. Just this morning, authorities introduced strict anti-pollution measures. Air quality in northern India is known to worsen at this time of the year, as cold winter air traps a toxic mix of dust, emissions and smoke from illegal farm fires. This year, weather forecasters say stubble burning is behind around 38% of pollution in New Delhi. Now, that's a practice in which straw left over from the harvest of rice is burned to clear fields. For more, Neha Poonia joins us live from New Delhi. Neha, what's the latest from the Supreme Court's hearing on the continuation of smog enforcement measures?
Well, this is the sternest intervention we've had from the country's top court in many years, with the Supreme Court now directing the government, that's both at the federal as well as state level, to not withdraw these emergency response measures that were implemented on Monday. It's also come down quite heavily on these governments, both at the state and federal level, questioning the delay in implementation of these emergency response measures, saying, why did they wait for the situation to worsen to such an extent before these measures were brought in? The court's directive is that all states that neighbor New Delhi, which includes the state of Uttar Pradesh as well as Haryana, which have also been similarly impacted, must also implement these emergency steps, which include a ban on construction activities as well as, reverting to online schooling for students up to high school. It's also said that, we cannot wait for state governments to decide on their own when it's appropriate to implement these measures, saying that these measures should be implemented preemptively instead of waiting for the situation to worsen. It's also said the Supreme Court's prior permission will now be needed, even if there is a drastic improvement in air quality overnight. The court, its intervention and the questions it's asked, welcomed by many citizens who've been criticizing the government's lack of action. We've also seen the Supreme Court ask the government to ensure that monitoring committees are formed to ensure that these measures are actually being implemented on the ground strictly, saying it's not just enough to have these measures on paper. We need to ensure that they are being enforced on the ground as well to actually have some sort of impact.
And until they're enforced, and even if they are enforced, they will take time to actually have an impact. What are authorities doing now to ensure people stay safe in this toxic smog?
Well, governments say that they have advisories in place that ensure that people are limiting exposure. So, for example, private offices have been asked to ensure that 50% of their staff is working from home. That option is also being extended to government employees. Schools are now holding online classes for younger children, given the warnings that have come in from doctors about how, hazardous this level of air pollution in the air can be. They've also put a ban on construction activities. They've limited, polluting vehicles that are not compliant with the latest pollution norms from entering New Delhi, and the same measures are now going to also be implemented in satellite cities surrounding New Delhi as well. But residents have been speaking to express a sense of fatigue and disappointment, saying year after year this happens, year after year we see these these measures being implemented, once the situation deteriorates. Many people I've been talking to say they're seriously considering leaving New Delhi because the quality of life during these winter months has deteriorated so drastically. People with young children are worried about their health, and the government says that they are doing their best, but clearly the court's intervention tells us that more needs to be done throughout the year, not just in these weeks.
Well, thanks. Neha Poonia reporting live from New Delhi.